Hello,
Hello.
welcome, Caitlin. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
And Golan's with us. Welcome, Golan.
Hi, Golan.
Hi guys, thank you for having me too.
Our pleasure. So warm enough for you too, or what?
It's pretty warm out here, I
Too
guess.
warm.
Too warm. It's funny, we complain all winter about the winter, and now that it's too warm.
We just like to complain. That's part of the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, it's there's just no pleasing us, right?
I love the
Exactly.
heat, but this is hot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hot is good.
Thank
Where's
God
the
for air
pup?
conditioning.
Yeah, where's the puppy tonight?
Sleeping.
Sleeping? How's he handling the heat?
He does not like the heat. Yeah, being a French bulldog, they're generally not good for heat. So hopefully he likes swimming. We just got our pool open. So
You have one of those little kiddie pools?
no, we have an in-ground pool in the backyard.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
The kitty ones are good too. Even just a couple inches of water, you get their paws wet.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to invest in one of those.
Yeah. Do you have a pool too, Golan?
Used to. I think this time it's more of a kiddie pool, like you call it, for the teenagers. All they want is just a hot tub. They don't care about anything else anymore now.
Yeah.
Just give us a hot tub and the music blaring, and we're happy.
Oh, life's good, eh? To be a teenager again.
Yes. They smell the end of the year, the school year, right? It's like this week or sometime next week, and they're already sleeping in starting last week. And I'm like, school is not over yet, is it?
I guess the marks are done, right? So it doesn't matter.
I think that's what happened, but they still have a few final exams, from my understanding of it. I don't know
Yeah.
if it matters or not. Cannot keep up with them.
They're in summer mode already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're because they had the prom about a month ago. So it's like it was over back then it was already done.
Yeah. Yeah. It must be tough for the teachers, eh? Those last couple of weeks when there's really no more sticks to hold out. Like the marks are done, report cards are probably done.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they feel sorry for them or it's just easier on them not to have all these troublemakers on the same classroom again.
They're probably looking forward to the break too, right?
Right.
Oh my.
What's the hot topic today?
What are we talking about today? Oh, changing your name in personal documents post separation.
Ah,
Some clients just want to get their names changed, right? Like it's so symbolic. They don't want anything to do with that
it's
former
true.
stuff.
It's almost like restitution of their of their previous positions. I want to be where I used to be before I married this guy or this woman. And if we can reverse time and be called the same name like we did before, maybe we can restart the whole thing.
I think it's the starting process of the exorcism, right? Change the name, get rid of those demons.
Listen, they say to themselves, I already dropped 200 pounds, why not drop the name too? Right?
Yeah, yeah. The
200 pounds meaning that's the spouse, right?
do you must see a lot of that at the front end of client service, eh, Caitlin?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
But
do have these requests as to procedure when it comes to how to deal with this, right? Whether
right.
they can, what procedure they have to take and so on.
Well, let's get at it. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome everybody. After hours is started, and I'm sure there's a happy hour going on somewhere. So this family law now after hours. Today's topic is post-separation, changing your name and personal documents. Before I introduce our speakers tonight, just a few brief housekeeping matters. The purpose of tonight's event is just a general discussion on tips and tricks. It is not intended to be construed as legal information or independent legal advice. If you want legal advice, call our firm or speak to a lawyer in your community to get tailored legal advice to your situation. We do have our Q&A feature open tonight, so if you have questions, please put your questions in the Q&A box. Stay tuned to the end of tonight's program. This is a bit of a teaser. If you stay to the end, we'll give you a code where you can contact our firm and get a complimentary consultation with one of our lawyers for up to 20 minutes. So if you want, there's some questions we did not answer, some follow-up that you want to take, we're going to give you that opportunity at the end of tonight's program. But let's talk about our speakers. We have Kaitlyn Swindells joining us tonight. Welcome, Kaitlyn.
Thank you for having me.
Kaitlyn works directly with clients to help them at each stage of their separation and divorce. She's been doing this for over 10 years. Hard to believe how quickly it goes by.
Very fast.
We get excellent rave reviews from our clients with respect to the service Kaitlyn provides. You can read those reviews online at Google My Business. There's hundreds of them from satisfied clients. She prepares correspondence, financial statements, disclosure briefs, court pleadings. Her knowledge and understanding of the family law rules and procedures greatly enhances the quality of the legal care that we provide to our clients. Golan Yaron is an associate lawyer with over 25 years of legal experience, called to the bar in Israel in 1996, and then called to the bar in Ontario in 2003. Golan does extensive trial work, negotiation, mediation, arbitration, always advancing his clients' interests and represents his clients at various levels of courts throughout the province of Ontario. I'm Russell Alexander. Welcome. I'm your host tonight, subbing in for Stephanie, who's off. I've got 25 years of experience doing family law work, and I get the privilege of working every day with Kaitlyn and Golan. So I'm really honored to have these two with us. So those are your speakers for tonight. But let's get at it. We've got lots to cover off. Legal process for changing your name. Steps to legally change your name in Ontario. Kaitlyn, client comes into the office. We're talking about this in the water cooler. Wants to make a fresh start. Doesn't want her husband's name or hyphenated name. Maybe wants to go back to her maiden name. What do we need to know? What are the steps they need to take?
Yeah, so there's definitely a few steps that you need to take before you can jump right in and changing your name, reverting back to your maiden name. There are a few things to note. If you're 16 or 17 years old, you need consent from every person who has legal custody. If you're married, you have to have a signed, it's called a joint declaration of conjugal relationship document. And you have to give your partner or your spouse notice that you're changing your name. There's an application that's to be filled out, and part 2 of the application will be required. It's possible that you actually may need a police records check as part of the legal name change application. So there's a few reasons that you would need the police record check. So once you go through the application, there's a few lists for the police records that it requires. So there's reasons such as pending court proceedings, outstanding law enforcement orders, convicted of any criminal offense, been found guilty of a criminal offense, or pending criminal legal charges against you. So if you answered yes to any of those, you would definitely need to provide an original police record check. So to change your name, you need to download the application to change an adult's name. And you can get this off the ontario.ca website. And if required, your requirements for obtaining the police record from your local police department. And you'll either need to submit the completed form by mail or in person. The cost is $137, so it's quite costly to change your name back. But once your name's approved, they'll send you a certificate with the change of name, which showing your previous and your new name as well.
Thank you. So I guess you can get that document on the Ontario government website.
Yeah, so it's ontario.ca. And so if you just search there, we can always provide a link as well, which has the application to be downloaded.
Is there a fee for that?
The fee for like changing your name back, the cost is $137.
The government, right?
It's costly.
Every time they're going to get you, but some people it doesn't matter. It's important. All right, so reverting to your maiden name, specifics for returning to your pre-marriage name. Is it the same process or is something new?
So if you elected to legally change your last name due to marriage or conjugal relationship, you can definitely change it back to your previous name. So the form is called an election to resume former surname. It's Form 2. This form can also be obtained online. When you legally change your name back to your previous name, you get a certificate of name change as well as a new birth certificate if you were born in Ontario. And you can use these documents to update any of your documents, such as your driver's license. You can contact the Office of the Registrar General to obtain the election to resume former surname. You can contact them by phone or sending in a written request. Once you have received the form and you've filled it out, there is a required fee as well. The fee is $25. And if your application is complete and accurate, a change of name certificate will be issued, as well as the new birth certificate. Once they receive it by mail, I think it takes about 6 to 8 weeks from the date that they receive your application to be approved for your new name.
Okay. So if you reside in Ontario, you go to the Government of Ontario website. Kaitlyn's going to give us a link. We can include it in our show notes at the end. And this is, I guess, the same section of the website, but a different form that you need to get
Yes.
that
Yeah.
form.
Yeah. To resume your former surname. So your maiden name, you would have to fill out this specific form.
Right. You can use a lawyer to help you do this, but I assume the government site is pretty user friendly.
Yeah, once you're able to find the forms, it's pretty straightforward. It gives you all the steps, the instructions in order to fill out the form and where to send it to with the required fee.
So your second and third divorce, you should probably get a good handle on this by now.
You should know by then, yeah. Although you may not change your name automatically once you get married.
Yeah, true. You might be a little reluctant to change it. All right, so updating personal documents, list documents that you need to update post name change. So what are some of the things we want to consider here, Kaitlyn?
Yeah, so there's tons of documents that you need to update once you've changed your name, whether it be getting married or after you separated or divorced. The top list of items that I would probably suggest would be your Ontario health card, so your OHIP card, your driver's license or any photo ID card that you have, your vehicle registration, permanent residence or citizenship card, your passport, which is one that a lot of people forget about, your social insurance number, so your SIN card, tax information with CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, banking and insurance information, any utility accounts such as hydro and phone bills, records with any healthcare providers. I know that once you go to the hospital, if you're using a different name, they won't have the records for that previous name, as well as any other accounts that you may have.
Yeah, I know when we got our Nexus, my wife had her name changed, and you go to get an interview with US and Canadian Customs, and the US was quite particular. Janie was missing, I think, one document with respect to a name change from 20 years ago. And they sent her back. They said, you got to come back for another interview, which is inconvenient. You've got to go to the airport for the interview. So you want to keep these original documents somewhere safe, right? In case you want a Nexus or a passport. Great tips. Thank you for that, Kaitlyn. All right. So moving on next, children's last names, consideration and process for changing the child's surname. Now, Golan, we always, this is a big deal for people going through separation and divorce, and oftentimes it goes to a judge. So I guess from you, let's just say it's nicey nice and the parents are getting along. And let's say it's not so nicey nice and you have to go to court to get it done. What does our audience need to know?
Well, the first thing is that, if everything is being nice and things are amicable and we're working things out by way of separation, which is always the preferred approach for negotiation, saving everybody time and a lot of money by just negotiating a proper separation agreement. We oftentimes include the issue of name change within that document. So either there is a agreed situation what the child's name would be, whether it's going to be hyphenated, whether it's going to stay the same with the current family name that everybody carries, whether it's the husband's name or otherwise. And that is the preferred scenario right there, that everybody knows that they're not just going to change the name unilaterally. They cannot do that. Kaitlyn just mentioned the issue of a name change for minors, that you need the consent of both parties. You have to apply to the registrar, and it's a whole process of changing the name if it's being done on consent. Now, the problem always arises when there is a dispute, and this is where we find ourselves in court, whether it's only regarding application for a name change or whether it's part of a whole parcel of disputed items, and we find ourselves before a judge to determine whether the name should be changed or not. The ultimate decision is always based on the child's best interest. It's part of but what is the child's best interest is sometimes could be vague. On other occasions, could be very specific to the connection, the community, who's the responsible parent, the association of the child with that parent, and the connection by last name is sometimes very important in certain communities or just in general. So all of that can be are considerations that we need to account for when we go to court and we fight over a name change, especially when, as the children are older, you also have to consider their wishes may come into play as well, and that's something that even the office of the children's lawyer may give an input on. Otherwise, we may just want to know what they want, right? We may just want to hear from them and see what they feel comfortable with. And here we are talking only about the last name, right? Because we assume that they kind of content with their first name that was given to them at birth, if there's no issue over that. But generally speaking, going to court over a name change is quite an ordeal, and hopefully people do not need to go through that if they can employ this negotiation process, collaborative process that our firm offers. Is often a good solution to come to terms with name change or not, or not changing it. That's in general the idea over that.
Yeah, I find if it goes to a judge, my experience, usually they'll hyphenate the name. There's no agreement. But some judges might not. And just your story about adult children or older children. I know in the news recently, I think Brad Pitt and Angelina, their daughter, dropped Brad Pitt's last name from a playbill in a production she's in. So I guess at some point the child's going to decide, right?
Right, that's exactly the point that we said. As they grow older, they have more say in the matter. They have to be comfortable with it. The hyphenated names seem to be like the easy solution, right? Just have both your names. Then the next argument is whose first name and whose last name.
Yeah, exactly.
Being hyphenated, right? And then you can always find another way to fight over things, but
But what if you're a professional athlete, like a hockey player, or you got to get that name on the back of the jersey, right? Kind of you run out of room.
I've seen some of them at the younger ages there, where the jersey cannot cover the whole thing. You see it like a rainbow around the number, and you cannot not follow the whole name. It's funny, but it's serious too. We're joking about it, but this is the identity of people that they're going to carry for the rest of their lives, and either the parents are making their decision for them, or they're going to let it ride until the children are old enough to make their own decision.
Yeah, good tips. So let's change gears. Impact on professional identity, handling name changes in your professional life. So a lot of professionals want to maintain continuity, and that's usually part of their brand. So what are some strategies for communicating name changes to your colleagues and your clients? There's several of them out there. I'll just go through a few of them. Face-to-face meetings is always a good one. Do a formal email announcement to your colleagues and clients. Maybe use a template, send it out to everybody. Communicate through, if you have a company newsletter, you can communicate it to your team. Team meetings, you can update your professional profile. Business cards and stationery, you want to think about that. You're going to need to update those documents. Reach out directly to your clients, either by phone or through client newsletter. Kaitlyn's touched upon this already, but you're going to want to update your official documents, ensure that all the contacts are correct. If you're a professional like a lawyer, you have a licensing body, we use the Law Society, you're going to want to make sure all the information with the Law Society is up to date. Use a CRM or an auto email responder. Be mindful of social media. You're going to want to communicate your change in name consistently across your social media platforms and profiles like LinkedIn. Your email signature, you're going to want to update that. Voicemail messaging, you're going to want to be consistent. So once you've decided you're going to change the name, you want to have a consistent message. Workplace procedures, you're going to want to update human resources. Your benefits insurer may need the proper name to process insurance benefits. We talked about your online presence. You want to think about your brand. How is your change of name going to affect your brand? And networking, right? When you go to network, you want to use your new name as well. So the tips are endless, but those are some of the things that came to the top of my mind. Do you want to add anything to that, Kaitlyn or Golan?
You covered most of the bases there.
Thank God for AI. All right. All right. What we're moving into next? All right. Changes in government agencies and rules. Okay, we kind of talked about this briefly, but if you, in addition to what Kaitlyn mentioned, there's a list of things I think we should probably run through. I would recommend prepare a checklist of the agencies you're going to want to contact and check them off as you go through it. Your social insurance number may need to be updated with your proper name. Kaitlyn mentioned the Ministry of Transportation, your driver's license, vehicle ownership, car insurance is going to require updating. Passport office, Kaitlyn touched upon that. Canada Revenue Agency should be updated with respect to your name change. People don't think about this, but Canada Post as well should have the proper name if you want your mail directed. It's, most of our messages these days are electronic or Amazon's delivering items to our home, but Canada Post still has your name on file. You're going to want to update that. OHIP, we've talked about that. Local government agencies, things like your municipal tax department, your legal documents such as wills, power of attorney, all these documents are going to need to be updated as well. So a lot to consider in terms of, really it's endless. Any kind of government agency that you come in contact with, you're going to want to make sure that they have the proper and corrected updated name. So financial accounts and properties, again, it's very similar to the government agencies and professional regulators. You're going to want to look at your bank accounts, your credit card companies, especially if you have supplemental credit cards and you're separating, you may want to get your spouse off that if that's part of your separation agreement or court order. Your loans and mortgages, this could be car loans, could be personal loans that you have. You're going to want to update the people who facilitate you with credit and make sure they have the correct name. Same with investment accounts, crypto accounts, any kind of digital currency, you're going to want to update that information. Insurance policies, we've talked a little bit about car insurance. You probably have health insurance, personal insurance, business insurance, disability insurance, life insurance. All these items will need to be considered. You're going to want to consider if you want to update the title and deed property documents to any real property that you own. Business ownership and assets as well. You're going to want to take a look at that, especially if you're a sole proprietor. Retirement accounts, RSPs, and pensions, another big one. So you're going to want to contact your pension plan administrator and let them know. Simple things like utility providers, tax records, digital online accounts. We mentioned estate planning accounts. The list is, again, this is endless. These are just some of the things you want to consider. And maybe it isn't worth changing your name. You know, if you weigh the pros and cons, we're talking in our water cooler. It's very symbolic and important for a lot of people to get this fresh start and new name, but you want to be mindful it's going to involve some work. So those are some of the financial accounts and issues you want to take a look at. Marriage and divorce certificates. This plays a role, right, Kaitlyn? What do we need to do if we're changing our name?
Yeah, so there's two separate, so whether it be the marriage certificate or the divorce certificate. So after you get married, you do have the option to take your spouse's last name. You don't have to formally change your last name. This option makes it easier to go back to your former name if you need to, because it doesn't change your birth certificate. So once you proceed with your wedding ceremony, your officiant will submit all of your documents, and this way you can obtain a certified marriage certificate. So you have to apply for this after you've been married. It takes about 10 weeks after you've been married to be registered. And I just want to note that your record of solemnization of marriage, which is what your officiant gives to you after you've been married, is not the same thing as a marriage certificate. Before you can get a marriage certificate, a marriage needs to be registered by the officiant where it was performed. So in the city or the location that you both were married. Once you receive your marriage certificate, you'll have to take that as well as your other identification documents to your closest Service Ontario. And this is how you start the name change process. So as long as you have your marriage certificate, this is how you can assume your married name. You don't necessarily need to be divorced to go back to your previous name, but it's definitely easier. If divorced, you simply show your court-ordered divorce certificate, which is Form 36 in the family law. And it provides a listing of both your married and your former name. You should always show your marriage certificate to link both your maiden and your married name. If you are not divorced, you can definitely go back to your former name, regardless of your personal situation. You simply show your marriage certificate together with either your birth certificate or your Canadian citizenship certificate, which shows your former name. You may be asked for additional evidence that you have resumed the use of your former name. So you may have to provide something such as a pay stub or a utility account in your former name. So just always have these documents available to show Service Ontario in case they require it. The only exception is for people who have elected to have their married name added to their Ontario birth certificate. So if your birth certificate lists your married name, you will need to complete the form called the election to resume former name, which I did touch upon at the beginning, which will be provided by Service Ontario. So this will remove your married name from your birth certificate so that you can proceed with changing your names. So both forms are, your marriage certificate and your divorce certificate, are definitely important. I will note that when you're filing family documents through the portal online, it takes both parties' maiden names. So even if you've changed your name, you may get concerned when you see your maiden name through the filing portal, but you can definitely ask the court clerk just to revert your name to your the name that you're currently using.
All right, so let's say we get this often. Client comes in, they don't have their divorce certificate or their marriage certificate. I assume we can get that reissued for a fee?
Yes, so if you just go on to, it's the same website, ontario.ca. There's an application to fill out for both for the marriage certificate and your divorce certificate has to be done through the court process.
So don't panic, even though it was 20 years ago, we can still obtain a duplicate copy to file with the necessary agency.
That's right. So it can be obtained online, but what they do is they ship the original to you by mail.
All right. So let's talk about dealing with misunderstandings, how issues arise from a name change. So just a brief summary, we talked about proactive communication. So informing all these people ahead of time. Legal documentation, we've talked about several forms tonight. Keep those in order and maintain proper records. You're going to want to go back to these later, especially if you're traveling. Updating your records thoroughly, cross institutions, including your banking and investment records, make sure that that's done. So it's helpful to have your checklist and refer back to your checklist to confirm that these steps have taken. We've talked about your professional identity and your clients and your brand and informing your professional governing bodies. Financial institutions, we talked about banks, credit cards, financial institutions, pensions, RSPs, your digital presence. So any kind of social media that you engage in, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, all those you're going to want to consider updating. Government agencies, we've talked about these at length tonight. Healthcare providers, property and utilities, legal and estate planning. So all these things you're going to want to maintain. In terms of misunderstandings, I provided an example earlier tonight of my wife having an issue getting a Nexus card, and her one document was missing. She had to return. So there could be identification issues if you're crossing the border or traveling. Financial discrepancies in your bank records, you're going to want to look at that. Medical and health records, make sure that your family doctor has your previous records and your current records, and they match those up. Legal documents, we've talked about wills, power of attorneys, property deeds, things of this nature. The government can make mistakes when they're updating, so you're going to want to make sure the government sites are corrected. Insurance policies, you're going to want to make sure that if there's been a miscommunication or an error, that these are addressed and dealt with. This goes back to maintaining your original documents, keeping a checklist, confirming when you took these steps, when you sent them in, when you updated your driver's license and your passport, and then you can reference back to it if you need to work with a government agency or a bank or other institution to get that sorted out. So finally, who would ever thought there'd be this much to talk about changing your name, but there's a lot that goes into it. Before we go into our final aspects, emotional aspects, Kaitlyn, did you want to add to anything that I just talked about?
No, I agree. Like there is a whole lot of things that need to be changed when you're changing your name. So I think a list is a fantastic idea. Even when you're getting married, just keep a list keep a track of all the things that you've changed your name on. And so that way, if you end up getting separated down the road, that you know what has been changed.
Yeah. Golan, did you want to add to that?
I was just saying, I was thinking about how nobody knows these days where they left their birth certificate and how important it is. After 50 years, I go,
Right.
why do I need to prove my birth again? Well, you cannot say enough about the importance of your birth certificate, especially if you want to revert to your maiden name or to your original name. And it's just a key document that you better preserve and ensure that you have copies of it and all that's needed, whether it's notarized or otherwise kept in a safe place, and that you can revert to it whenever needed. It's that yours and the children's and anybody that's under your care. It's definitely a key document.
Maybe even laminate it, right? Like if yeah, I see these birth certificates, they're just barely being held together, with the coffee stains on it. I'm almost a little embarrassed to admit this. I never updated my health card. I remember the old red and white ones.
Yeah, without the photo.
Yeah, it's like the version 1. And whenever I go in for healthcare, like their computer doesn't have a drop-down code for that version. They get really upset with me because I don't have the current one, but take the time, get it right. So let's just move in. This has been a great discussion tonight. Thank you. everyone. But let's move into the final aspect, emotional aspects, coping with the identity shift that a change in name can bring. So Golan, what do you think about all this?
We try not to give advice as a psychiatrist or a psychologist in this session. It's really just from experience to know that the whole trend or the decision around I want to go back to my maiden name or I want to revert to my original surname. It all part of and part and parcel of your mental health and dealing with or coping with the separation, whether it's a closure or whether it's a just a the type of regret or just to be connected specifically with that child, and you don't want any association with the other part that represents maybe something not pleasant in your marriage over the years. So all of this has an emotional baggage attached to it, and there's different ways to deal with it. Some just deal with it through counseling, other live it daily just by even if they revert to their own original name or surname, and they can still on any documents their children's name is still carrying somebody else's name or is not associated directly with them, could also be a possible trigger of emotional turmoil and upset. So it's really a individual on how the separation unfolded, what kind of ending, whether it's amicable or not, whether there is some a form of acceptance that this is just a chapter and we're moving on. It doesn't mean that we need to erase everything that had happened over the former years. And it's really individual to everyone how they wish to deal with this.
Kaitlyn, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, Golan hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of clients that I've seen, once they've changed their names, if they've seen their children's names with the other partner's last name on it, it hits them and it's very emotional for them, and they're not quite sure how to deal with it. But I know that a lot of the times once they separate, they immediately want to change their name because it's a lot to deal with and they don't want to have that. They want a brand new fresh start. So it's definitely important to deal with it, whether you want to change it or keep it the same. You need to deal with it immediately.
Yeah, every time you see that lacrosse or hockey jersey child go across the field or the ice, it triggers that reaction, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And if this seems overwhelming, we're not trying to make it sound overwhelming. We're trying to give everybody the information they need to identify some of the issues they're going to have to address when changing a name. If you want, you're welcome to consult with a lawyer or somebody at our office. One of our law clerks could probably hammer this out pretty quickly for you if you just don't want the stress of trying to figure it all out on your own. So there are professionals available to assist. But I just want to share one story because it's story time, it's after hours. And then we're going to let everybody know what our teaser is to get the consultation. So not quite on par with a name change, but I had a client who came back about a year and a half after I got her divorced. This is pre-pandemic. And so then in the old days, we'd take a physical photo of the client and put it on the inside of the file because we're required to identify our clients for the Law Society. We could be transferring large sum of money as a result of a sale of home, and we want to make sure we get the right person. So the client comes back a year and a half later and says, I want to update my photo. I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, that photo, I was overweight, I was stressed, I was going through the worst time of my life. I've lost weight, I'm more confident, I feel better about myself. I don't want that photo representing who I am. I go, sure. So we took a new photo, we put it in, I gave her back the old photo, and I don't know, she destroyed it or did something with it. But this is similar to a change of name. It's that symbolic and that important that she doesn't want, that part of her life defined by her ex-husband's our partner's last name. And even though it's expensive and it's a little bit inconvenient, for that peace of mind moving forward, there's some value to it. So I can certainly see in the clients we work with the importance of this. So we're having some fun and making some jokes about it, but we agree this is a very important issue and one that isn't discussed enough. And it's really not that difficult once you understand where to go, how to get the forms, how to submit them. It's not as overwhelming as it seems. So there's my story for story time. Final thoughts. I want to thank our audience for joining us. Just before I get to final thoughts, go to our closing comments, which Daphne wrote out for me, which is kind of nice, so I don't muck it up. So thank you for sticking to the end. We have the complimentary session with one of our lawyers. The code this week is Change Your Name 2024. You can email Nicole at russellalexander.com to schedule a consultation. I'll try to get that into the chat box so everybody will have the contact information. And you need to contact her by Friday this week to secure your spot. Doesn't mean you'll get a spot this week, but that's when the code expires. So I'm putting that in the chat right now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Any final thoughts or takeaway, Kaitlyn?
No, it was, I hope that people got some information from it so that we can definitely supply the links as well as maybe a copy of the applications so that if anybody requires them, then they're made available.
Yeah, we'll send out a survey tonight or tomorrow with the show notes. And please provide us with your feedback, how we did tonight, any other topics you want us to cover, let us know. Golan, any final thoughts?
Definitely bureaucracy at its best. That's the way you should look at changing your name and reverting it. It's just bureaucratic procedure and carrying a lot of emotional issues that goes along with it. Hopefully people find their way to deal with it the best for them. That's my
I agree. So thank you for your time tonight, for joining us. Kaitlyn, thank you for sharing your valuable insight. You too, Golan.
Thank you. Yes.
Encourage everybody to follow our after hours series and have a great night.
Bye, guys. Thank you.